One Piece. I know what it is. You know what it is. I don't. I will eat your children. Everyone that knows anything about entertainment has been exposed to it in one way or another. And if you think you haven't, yes, you have. You might not have realized you were, but trust me, this franchise has such a deft grip on popular culture, it's gonna force you to interact with it sooner or later. Olympians reference it, streamers misinterpret it, it's beloved by athletes, politicians, celebrities. You like celebrities, right? Well, they like One Piece. So if you ever want them to like you, you're gonna have to get with the program and watch it, kid. Samuel L. Jackson won't respond to your DM unless you can flawlessly imitate Caesar Clown's laugh on command. It is a very serious exchange that requires a ton of knowledge to understand. So for those willing to take the dive and see what the hype's all about, there's a couple avenues to pick from if you want to get started. For those looking to find the purest experience, you could go right to the source and check out the masterfully written manga. If you want to see it all in action, they've got an anime that, okay, I'm not gonna lie, it gets pretty bad after a time skip, so you should probably hop off and read the manga for a while, but then you can come back when it suddenly gets more amazing than ever because you can't keep One Piece down. There's movies, games, a fucking rap song. But if none of those are right for you, possibly due to the daunting size of it all, then for beginners, I would almost recommend the new live-action Netflix original adaptation. And look, I understand the phrases live-action anime and Netflix original sound like a match made in hell for obvious reasons, but this is different, okay? It's not a westernized reimagining, it's not inspired by the series, but completely unrelated. It is a genuine attempt at adapting One Piece to a new format from a crew that loves the series. And for the most part, I think they did a good job. The cast is full of amazing talents that embody their animated counterparts to a T. The action scenes are surprisingly well choreographed and shot. Painstaking effort has gone into capturing the world, making references to future events before even the original did. It's all clearly indicative of a love for the property that you hardly ever see in these kinds of productions. So when the show does take creative liberties to fit around its shorter runtime, I don't feel insulted like I do by Death Note or Cowboy Bebop, as the heart of the series and its characters are kept intact. It just needed to make these changes for budget, time, or narrative cohesion, and most of the time it ends up working out. Giving Buggy a circus setting really upped his intimidation factor and provided a new, interesting gimmick for him to work off. Turning Baratier into a low point for the whole cast gave gravitas to Nami leaving and made Arlong Park extra satisfying. These are all changes that I can wholeheartedly get behind, as they don't diminish the cast whatsoever, instead adding new details we've never seen before. But unfortunately, that's not true of every character. In fact, one of them was ruined by these changes, and he also just so happens to be my favorite character, so it hit especially hard to me as an argument for why I can't quite recommend the series to newcomers. His name is Usopp, and this series did him dirty. But before that, I want to talk about a service that'll do you right every time with delicious pre-made meals geared to your specifications. And that's this video's sponsor, Factor. Now, you might remember that in the past, I've also promoted their sister company, HelloFresh. And that's because, fundamentally, they both provide enticing meal variety delivered right to your door. However, recently, I haven't had as much time to meal prep or cook, being so busy with videos. So I've taken an interest in Factor for their convenience, having just as many options to choose from for people of all stripes, with meals made from fresh ingredients by gourmet chefs that you can microwave in 2 minutes while getting your daily nutrients. Not to mention that, as someone who doesn't get nearly enough exercise, I can choose dietitian-approved, calorie-smart meals that are all 550 calories or less per serving, while on occasions I want to treat myself, I can order from their Gourmet Plus option for something extra special. They're the kind of service I personally find a lot of use out of, so if it sounds good to you, you can head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code JustStop50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring, and on with the video. Now, when I say that Usopp was done dirty in the One Piece live action, what do I mean by that? Is his actor bad? No. Jacob Romero does a great job embodying the character and working with the script he's given. Is he removed from any of the storylines? No, he's still there and more or less plays the same role in the episodes he's present. So, what's he missing? Depth. Usopp in the original manga and anime was, for all intents and purposes, a subversive take on a commonly disliked character archetype, and the specific details of his story, the Syrup Village arc, were integral to conveying that, but they're lost in adaptation. And I understand why this was done. It's not a mindset that I personally subscribe to, but Syrup Village, from the perspective of many fans and one of the showrunners for this adaptation, is considered one of, if not the worst arc in the series for a couple reasons. People think it's too long, they don't see the main villain Kuro or his subordinates as all that unique, the fights are thought to be overextended, all criticisms that honestly I would level at Baratier, as the way I see it, Syrup Village is incredibly underrated in that most people don't see how well every element collides to help define Usopp's character. In the beginning, we see him running to wake up the townspeople, lying that pirates are coming, as he's done for several years now, before meeting up with his brigade of kid followers, the Usopp Pirates, and trying to scare off the small group of Straw Hats using tricks. Right away, this is a perfect setup for how we're supposed to view Usopp in the beginning, as it gives us glimpses into his skills, those being lying, sniping, and trickery, and it puts us under the impression that he's just a cowardly kid pretending to be a pirate. He's not someone that's taken too seriously as a threat or an asset, but in the following chapters we do get to see his heart, as he's protective of the bedridden rich girl Kaya, and keeps her in high spirits by telling stories about his fantastical adventures, using his lies for the sake of others. However, the true awakening of Usopp's character comes after he discovers that Kaya's butler, Clawhador, is actually a retired pirate named Captain Kuro, who plans to have Kaya accidentally killed in a raid upon signing over her money to him. It's a dire set of circumstances that only Usopp overhears, or besides Luffy, but he's passed out and is thought to be dead, so Usopp decides he needs to warn everyone before they're all killed, but as you can imagine, they don't believe him. Despite his cries, no one thinks he's telling the truth, not even Kaya, and they run him out of town with guns and pitchforks, leaving him in a tricky position. Usopp has almost no manpower as the village's doom gets closer by the second, so with his back to the wall, seeing it as a do-or-die decision, this is where we see him go beyond the character we've known him to be. In the past, he's run away from conflict or tried to mitigate problems using tricks, being all bark and no bite, but here, with actual people's lives at risk, not believing him because of his own actions, he steps up, recognizing that he's the last bastion of defense for this quiet island. The townspeople don't think the pirates are coming, so Usopp decides that's gonna be the case, planning to fight them all by himself at the town's entrance to make his warning seem like just another fib. And I'd say it's probably the most important choice in the entire story, as it's the point where Usopp casts aside his childish ways. He's no longer a kid playing pretend, as represented by him pushing the Usopp pirates away, not wanting them to get hurt. He's an honest-to-God pirate that the Straw Hats are impressed by and want to help. Having seen that below his cowardly facade, while he is afraid and wants to avoid conflict whenever possible, he's not gonna let innocent people get hurt no matter what they think of or how they treat him. To Usopp, the townspeople don't deserve any of Kuro's self-centered, short-sighted wrath, so in opposition to his plan and values, Usopp decides to protect them, assuming he'll get nothing out of it, whether respect or fame. He's fully content to leave his deeds unknown so the townspeople can have peace of mind, and he carries through with that promise when the next day comes, doing his damnedest to fend off the pirates at all costs alongside the Straw Hats. It's a battle that demonstrates how brave Usopp really is, not having the fighting skills that the others do, but persisting anyway out of sheer determination to protect others. Again, drawing strict opposition to Kuro, who cares solely for himself and has no honor, abandoning pirate life when he was in danger, showing that in the end, it's Kuro who's the cowardly one, not Usopp, and it was through his cowardice of believing he could run away yet also have everything that led to his downfall. Kuro was a victim of his own gutless entitlement, abandoning his dream for a life he didn't deserve, and so, continuing their parallels following the fight, Usopp decides to stop fearing his dream and joins up with the Straw Hats, embracing his adulthood by disbanding the Usopp Pirates, knowing they have other goals in life. It's a brilliant ending to a brilliant arc that, though he wasn't the strongest or the one that finished off the big bad, allowed Usopp to begin maturing into the true warrior of the sea he so longs to be. I wouldn't say there's nothing you could remove from the story, since elements like Django, as Riz-tastic as he is, could be replaced by any other member of the crew. But for the most part, it's perfect the way it is. So seeing the live action change everything in Syrup Village, totally destroying Usopp's character development in the process, made me pretty disappointed to say the least. On the positive, I do enjoy the newly cramped, isolated slasher vibe they've got going, switching the fight to inside Kaya's house with the other staff as well as Kuro being pirates themselves, but while this is a cool change of pace and all, it also creates a situation where Usopp is a shell of his former self without an arc or show of selfless bravery to speak of. You see, Kuro still plans to have Kaya killed once she turns of age, seizing her fortune for himself, but in this version, there is no crew to ransack the village and accidentally kill her, meaning that, well, first of all, I guess Kuro's just gonna slit her throat and claim ownership, disregarding how he'd have to explain everything. Hello, I am Miss Kaya's butler, and unfortunately she has passed away, so I will be taking her fortune.
Oh my, Mr. Clawhador, that's so unfortunate. How did Miss Kaya pass?
What?
What was the cause of her death? We're gonna need a record and her body for the authentication of her passing.
Would you believe me if I said she simultaneously fell onto 5 blades in the pattern of a handprint right as she turned 18? But more importantly than that, if the pirates aren't coming to ransack the whole village, simplifying it to Kuro and his pals coming after Kaya, then that means Usopp doesn't get to prove he's selfless, brave, or honorable. He's no longer the type of guy to protect a village of people that hate and don't believe him from a band of pirates out to kill, knowing he's got a slim chance of victory. He's the type of guy that runs away after seeing his new friends presumably die, hearing that Kuro plans to kill Kaya, and goes looking for help, abandoning everyone out of cowardice. This is exactly what Usopp isn't supposed to be. He's not someone that would actively run from his close friends upon seeing them in danger, hoping someone else can handle the problem for him. That was the setup he later subverted. He's supposed to be a guy that, whether he's confident or not, whether he has to do it with others or alone, will go into battle if someone else's life is on the line. It doesn't matter if he can beat them, all he cares about is protecting those that need it most. And he held that belief long before he was a true pirate. It was an integral facet of his character from day one. So having him puss out and leave his friends to potentially die as he looks for help is the worst possible thing you could have him do. And he isn't much better once he decides he's done running and comes back. It's already not nearly as impactful with the scope shrunken and Usopp running off in the first place, but when he does go back to the mansion to protect Kaya, he really doesn't. I mean, he goes with Kaya to help escape the mansion as Kuro and crew are looking around for them, but his selflessness and cunning never get a chance to shine when they so easily could have. Wouldn't it have been cool if Usopp diverted attention from Kaya by causing a distraction, or use some of his patented tricks to catch them off guard? I don't know, just give him something to do other than cower in fear, not protecting anyone, until Kaya herself, who, by the way, is terminally ill, does something first. Like, it shouldn't take her and Nami literally almost dying for Usopp to finally do anything other than hide. He's basically forced into taking action, displaying none of the bravery or intentionally self-sacrificing badassery the original had. He wouldn't have done shit if he didn't have to or else. Yet once everything's said and done, Luffy's all, Usopp, I saw what you did there, sticking up for your friends. I need that kind of guy on my crew. As if he didn't run away at first, being a total spineless bitch until the last second. And I know what they're going for with this line. It's obviously meant to parallel when Usopp's about to set sail on his own, but the Straw Hats tell him to get on board, as they already considered him a part of the crew long before Kuro was beaten. After all, they fought together, found respect for each other, came to an understanding as teammates and friends. By the end of the original Syrup Village, you got the feeling Usopp belonged as a member of the Straw Hats. He overcame his self-doubt, matured as a person, fought fearlessly, protected those he cared about, and found the resolve to follow his dream with a group of friends that accept him for who he is. The original earned the right to be a Straw Hat through his positive qualities, but live-action Usopp doesn't have any of that. He didn't mature as a person, he didn't form a personal bond with the crew like he did during their team-up against the Black Cat Pirates, he didn't overcome a personal struggle. Shit, he wasn't even gonna set out to sea until the Straw Hats were all like, "You're coming with us, right?" To which Usopp was confused, and I'm right there with him. Since when did this guy want to go out to sea? He's not the original Usopp, he doesn't have any fucking goals. Yeah, he still tells stories to Kaya about being a great adventurer, but there's no intent behind them. Maybe it would have been better communicated that he longs to be a pirate if he had a group of friends he pretended to be the captain of, or tried to set out to sea on his own, but, you know, unfortunately he doesn't, so the proposal for him to join kinda comes out of nowhere. It's got a lot of power in the original thanks to how it was set up, but that setup is missing in the live action, so it doesn't really make sense. And the confusion doesn't stop there either. Believe it or not, Syrup Village, as it was originally presented, was super important for a specific Usopp scene that came a few stories later in Arlong Park, which the live action, once again, messes up. Now, I've already talked about how Usopp across Syrup Village has an arc revolving around leaving his childish ways behind to become a real man. But him disbanding the Usopp Pirates to join the Straw Hats doesn't mark the end of that journey. It's only a prologue for what's to come over the course of the rest of the series. And Arlong Park illustrates that through his fight with Chu. For context, the Straw Hats are fighting fishmen, these hybrid beings that are naturally much stronger than the average human, and Usopp has to fight Chu, a guy that shoots water bullets. Though, to call it a fight isn't really correct, as it's mostly Usopp running away, and once he gets the chance, playing dead, thinking he can wimp out. It's an action that, for a second, makes you think Usopp will revert back to his childish ways, pretending he fought his hardest while actually cowering away from a life-threatening situation. But then he stops, looks at himself, and realizes that to do this would be an insult to all his friends, who are going through hell so they can laugh once the fighting's done. And if he ever wants to be the same, he can't curl up when the going gets tough. He needs to stick it out for those he cares about, just as he did in Syrup Village. And so before Chu can get away, Usopp makes his presence known, shoots him with booze, and lights him on fire using a special star, reaping his first true one-on-one victory. It is a massive triumph for Usopp both literally and thematically, moving him forward in maturity as much as it does strength-wise, and for that reason, it's one of my favorite bits from Arlong Park to this day. But, as I've stated, Syrup Village was altered to remove the Usopp Pirates and their disbanding, so he doesn't have that arc of maturity at all. It was never set up in this canon, so how can they continue something they forgot to add in the first place? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. They don't. The fight still happens, having Usopp run away, play dead, and so on, as you'd expect, but his internal struggle and resolution is completely removed, taking away yet another Usopp W, and making his choices in the fight sorta confusing. Like, for instance, Usopp doesn't play dead thinking he'll get away and pretend he fought bravely anymore, he just does it for no apparent reason, immediately getting back up after being found, so what was the point? Without the whole planning to run away but finding the courage not to aspect, him pretending to die doesn't make sense from a logical perspective, let alone a thematic one. It is narratively broken without the struggle. You can't have the fight or these interactions without it, so I don't understand why it was removed. Yeah, the setup for his arc of maturity was cut out in Syrup Village, but this would have worked just as well as a starting point. Up to this fight in the live action, Usopp has given off the vibe of someone that doesn't belong, so keeping this scene as it was could have been a new beginning for his growth into a true pirate. And I don't see why it wasn't. The last episode of the live action is already its shortest by a good margin. It's not like giving Usopp extra time would have taken away from anything, nor would it have been costly, so it's weird. It's very weird that this moment in particular was ruined without any clear upside. Hey, while we're at it, why don't we shorten Zoro's backstory so his friendship with Kuina comes off shallow? Oh wait, in my eyes, there was no justification for disrespecting my man like this. He deserved so much better than he got, especially considering the rest of this was done with such care. And I understand that not everything in an adaptation is going to be perfect. Certain things will be cut when all's said and done out of necessity, but if one character's getting more cuts than the rest, then that isn't fair. And hopefully with the live-action second season being announced, they'll fix this discrepancy going into Alabasta, as I could not live with myself if they messed up Usopp versus Mr. 4. One Piece live-action, you've done so much right so far. All I'm asking is that you go a little bit further. But until then, I've been Just Stop. You've been waiting for a new video for way longer than you should. Don't worry, I'm gonna have an enormous project out soon to make up for it, so be patient, and peace out.